Well, howdy there, folks. James, Political Friar, coming at you again. Got the London School of Economics hat on today, so we're going to talk about an international topic. It's still going to be politics, but it's going to be British politics instead of American politics. And that's because a very interesting little piece of news crossed my attention yesterday. Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, reshuffled his cabinet, and most of the changes, people getting fired or getting hired, didn't matter much, except for one name really popped, and that's the name of David Cameron. Now, many of you know David Cameron was the Prime Minister of Britain from 2010 to 2016. He was from the same party as Rishi Sunak, which is why he's being invited back into the cabinet. That is the Tories, or the Conservative Party. Now, why is it that the Conservative Party has been in charge of Great Britain since 2010, but David Cameron hasn't been the Prime Minister that entire time? It's because he led Britain into Brexit. Now, the political calculation for Mr. Cameron was thus: he felt that he was vulnerable to Labour, the primary opposition party in Britain, in among white working class folks, in particular in the north of England, where there is something of a rust belt that exists. And so, to appeal to these folks, he proposed something that their national desires really wanted. He says, hey, support Tories, and I will give you a referendum vote on whether we leave the European Union. And this is a similar gambit as he had played earlier in his prime ministership with Scottish independence. He says, Scotland, stick with us, and I'll give you a referendum on whether you want to be independent. And that first referendum worked out for David Cameron. Scotland voted to stay in the Union with England and Wales and Northern Ireland. And as you know, the second referendum very emphatically did not work out. The British people, led by those same northern Tories that Cameron used to get his majority, voted to leave the European Union. After now 9 or so years, almost 9 years of this process playing out, I think we can say unequivocally that that was a capital B bad idea. England is significantly less wealthy, less well, and less powerful than it was as a member of the European Union. And David Cameron knew it. He knew it at the time. He knew that this was a terrible idea, but he did it for cynical political reasons to get power, and it just didn't pan out for him. Now he's back. He's back under Rishi Sunak, who's actually the, let's count them, one, two, third prime minister since David Cameron resigned. Fourth prime minister since David Cameron resigned, all of them Tories. Now, the question may be in the back of your mind, hey, wait a minute, didn't you say that Labour was the primary opposition party to the Tories? How could there have been four prime ministers and all of them be Tories and none of them be Labour? Well, that's because the English system works a little different. It's simply the leader of the country is more akin to the Speaker of the House than it is a president. There's no direct elections for prime minister. It's just whoever the majority party in the parliament puts forward to be the acting executive. But that same parliament that put that prime minister forward can immediately take it away. And that's what's happened a couple of times. So there have been some elections in there, but for the most part, this has been politics that's very much like the speaker fight in the American Congress, and they're deciding on who they want their speaker to be among the Tories. Now, why didn't Labour win any of the elections since David Cameron resigned? Well, it's because they had a guy named Jeremy Corbyn as their avatar, and he is a old style leftist. I'm talking Karl Marx and Engels sort of communist, and kind of an ugly character. I think that the Labour voters just got so pissed at the way that the country was going. They said, you want to be extreme, we'll be extreme too. But yeah, it turns out the Tory extremists were actually less nuts than the Labour extremists. Well, Jeremy Corbyn's no longer with us either. The Labour Party has got their act together, and they now have a leader who's a truly credible dude. His name's Keir Starmer. And this is partially what explains David Cameron's return. See, Rishi Sunak can read the polls, he can read economic numbers, and he can see that he is in trouble. The UK has this rule where you have to have an election at least every 5 years, but the prime minister can call one anytime he wants. That at least 5 years, it's coming up. It's January of 2025, and really it's autumn of 2024. Who wants to campaign over Christmas? So the latest the next elections are going to happen in England is probably the autumn of next year. And that means Richie Sunak needs to get his ducks in a row if he's going to have any chance of keeping his job as prime minister. Labour is much more popular than the Tories are right now. Now, don't look at that through an American political lens. The partisanship in England, while existent, is much, much less deep seated. Many, many people will vote for Labour and Tory on the same ballot. Very many people will switch between elections. It's a way more fluid situation. So even though Tories are down by double digits in the most recent polls, that doesn't mean they're going to lose. It means that they have to get the right message to appeal to where the electorate is. It makes the Tory party move to the electorate rather than trying to drag the electorate to the party. And that's why David Cameron's coming back. Because the kind of right-wing ultra-nationalist fervor that gripped Britain and caused Brexit has had a major backlash. It's hard to argue with results or lack of results. See, Britain is the slowest growing economy in the G20 except for Russia. Britain's debt to GDP ratio is now 93%. They don't have the dollar to back them up like the United States does. They cannot afford that debt. Their inflation is the highest at 5.9%, and that's down from north of 8% recently. All of this can be laid at the feet of the Tory party because they've been in power since 2010. This is one of those times where it's not just coincidence because there's a large enough sample size to say, no, it's your policies. And it's primarily Brexit. It was Brexit that has caused all of this harm more than any other occurrence. Of course, the pandemic and other things played into it, but the thing that differentiates Britain from its other G20 peers is Brexit. Everybody else is doing better than Britain. Everybody. Even Italy is doing better than Britain. That's wild. And Tories are going to get the blame for it unless they can somehow rehabilitate themselves by maybe, bringing back a former popular prime minister who was opposed to Brexit and had successful economic and foreign policies for 6 years. It's a beard on the Tory party. It's also proof that the Tory party has ejected those toxic elements that caused all of the harm. And the final thought I have about this is about America. See, it appears that maybe the fever of right-wing furiousness causing harm to the nation out of almost a childish fit is breaking in England. It gives me hope that maybe it'll break in the United States. It hasn't happened yet, but maybe the antibodies of good civil society, Western liberalism, and the rule of law will start doing their work here in the United States too. Gosh, wouldn't that be great? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hit the like button on this video. Subscribe if you haven't. One of the primary metrics for how well these videos do is the number of subscribers. Even if you don't watch another one, hit that subscribe button. It really helps. Anyway, I appreciate you. Thanks.